Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Palantalk on Banner and Backbone. I'm Nick Perro, joined by my friend Rachel Marin. Welcome, Rachel.
Surprise!
Perfect freaking timing. I am so happy you're here with me today. Welcome.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
yeah, thanks for joining me last minute. It is Shane's birthday, so he is taking the day off.
Happy birthday,
Um,
Shane.
Happy birthday, Shane.
He's a birthday twin with
Not
Lawrence Winterman.
He's also birthday twin with Dr. Eric Lulov, too.
Oh, well, geez. This is
There's a lot of birthdays.
March 9th. What were their parents doing 10 months ago?
Hey, that's the question we sometimes don't need the answer to.
For the record, I know for a fact that I was delivered exactly 40 weeks to the day that my dad returned from Vietnam.
Really?
Yep.
That is pretty specific.
It was very specific.
And Rachel, I just sent you in the chat because it never works when it goes through Substack itself for
Okay.
some reason. Is just sent you the link so you can let your subscribers know that you've gone live with us
It's in the chat here.
in private chat here with us.
Got it. Let me do that.
Yeah, because that'll be
Invite,
for what we're
accept.
doing today. It's going to be really an important discussion. So, hey, everyone, welcome. It's Palantalk. I'm Nick Perro, again, joined by Rachel Marin, and we are going to be having a really good discussion around what's going on with the latest developments in the U.S. Israeli war against Iran and the profiteering that is happening because of it by our friends in the tech, well, not friends, but the assholes in the tech world who
Yeah.
are destroying society for their own benefit.
Yep.
Um, and so, Rachel, you're kind of a perfect person to talk about this with. And
Tragically.
tragically. And so, for anyone in the audience who doesn't know you, do you mind introducing yourself just a little bit so
Sure.
people get a quick idea of who you are and why they should trust what we're about to talk about?
So, I guess starting with trust. I write This Woman Votes. I write about progressive politics and sort of the intersections of capital extraction and technology and politics and sort of following the money. That's always my focus, following the money. But I also write a business blog over on the boring side of Substack called Trustable, Trustable .blog. You can read about tech and AI and sort of the the practical applications of it, in addition to sort of a lot of the risks. And I just this morning published on This Woman Votes another, let's call it a less nerdy, more measured take on AI and where we're going with it, and what's happening in the military, especially with the recent Anthropic AI or OpenAI Anthropic tension that has occurred over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was out of town and we started a new war, and Anthropic found their spine, and I couldn't write about it because I'm traveling through Portugal with an old beat up iPhone. It's the only tech that I traveled with, so it was crazy.
Yeah. That always happens, doesn't it? When you're away, something big always comes out of
Yeah,
the woodwork.
yeah, yeah.
And this one was a big one.
It was huge. It was huge.
This is kind of huge. Like, there's not much bigger than like the US starting another
Yeah,
global war.
I'm sitting in a cafe eating pastéis de nata like it's my job and reading about what's going on. and then sort of marveling over coming home, and going through customs and realizing, oh, my transition through godforsaken Newark customs is going so smoothly because there is no Middle Eastern people transitioning. There's no flights coming in from the Middle East. So
Yep.
nobody, that's I don't know how many people, it's got to be 200, 300,000 people taken out of the pipeline of travel. So, it was the whole experience was somewhat surreal coming back through airports and just sort of, it was quieter than usual. It was really kind of weird.
Yeah. I traveled this weekend too, because of my trip I went to Minneapolis for the
I
um,
heard.
Abolish ICE Live event concert
Right.
sponsored by Save America Movement, Valor Media. Um, and I got sponsored by Veterans Fighting Fascism to go out there.
Nice.
Thanks to Chris Goldsmith and team,
Yep.
Ken Harbaugh, others who were there, like incredible. I got to meet some really incredible veteran creators. You're going to see some of them
Yep.
appearing on some of my shows here soon. I've got an intelligent masculinity interview with Ken
Love
Harbaugh
it.
lined up.
Oh my God, I love it.
Um,
I can't wait.
I actually, Rachel, you're another perfect person to talk to about this, is because you and Dana and some of the really intelligent women do a really cool show on Thursday mornings on the Daily Whatever show.
Yep.
Is I want to start inviting some of y'all on for the ladies' takes on intelligent masculinity and what it means to you and
Yep.
what your side, how you see it.
Yeah.
Because
I, I've written about it a lot.
Mhm.
I've written about it a lot because I raised 6 boys,
And right there,
right? Like,
right, like not only that, you're a woman, which means you've interacted with men your whole fucking life.
I've I've also, as you've heard me say, I'm all about bacon and breaking balls, baking cookies and
Hmm.
breaking balls, because that's how I was raised. I
And you ride a motorcycle, right?
I ride a motorcycle.
You're in circles that are
I'm in
often very
very male
misogynistic.
dominated circles, right?
Yeah.
When I was the oldest of 13 male cousins, brothers, uncles. Like, that's I was raised as the first boy that my father didn't get. And so I grew up wrenching on motors and riding motorcycles and just doing boy shit. And then I start raising kids and it's boy after boy after boy after fucking boy. you know, and
Hey,
you're just like, okay, I guess I'm raising boys. But I'm also not one of those people that identifies as boy mom, because I feel like the whole boy mom mentality, in particular online, can be very toxic.
oh yeah.
I parented 6 men, and they are now parenting their own boys. And so and what I see in them is what I didn't see in any of sort of my generation, in that, my grandson wanted sparkly fingernails, and so my son painted his nails, and he painted his own nails because he didn't want his own son to be uncomfortable with a desire for sparkles. And so I have I can't imagine, like, I can't imagine my cousins or my brother painting their nails because, they're men.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is men do paint their nails, and that makes me happy. Um,
Yes. I feel like what I see today from men younger than my generation, my generation, I mean, even when I went into sort of, I split from my husband in 2020. We were together 26 years, and in 20, like, the 90s to 2020, um, dating got real weird. Like, real weird. And so, like, I started dating younger and younger, not because I have no desire to be like a cougar or anything like that. But what I found is that slightly younger men kind of knew better. I don't want an unsolicited dick pic from a 63-year-old. I
Ugh,
just don't. My imagination is vivid. And I am perfectly capable of asking for what I want.
yes.
And like if I'm dating a 35 or 40-year-old, they don't send that. They don't do that. They don't behave that way because they fucking know better. You know what I mean? And yet men in my generation just hadn't yet figured out
I'm
that,
36, so I know exactly what you mean.
right?
We
Yeah, I
do know
mean,
that.
yeah, and better. And so that's sort of where I found myself in going into the dating thing, because I got on an app and I'm like, oh, first of all, dating in your 50s as a woman, you're just like, you have no idea what's going on or what's coming down the pike. So it was just really a wild, interesting time. I don't recommend it.
And this I'm so excited to be able to get to have you on for some of the shows, because those discussions around masculinity are really important,
Yeah,
and they're going to help us change the narrative where
yeah,
it needs to be changed so
yeah.
that people feel comfortable, and people
And
are, and men are just, as I keep saying it to others, is my slogan is for men, we and other people, but men in
yep.
general, is just suck less. And that's really what so
The,
many
the
people are
bar
asking for, is
is
to just
low.
suck less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the bar is low. I and the thing is I grew up with men. I
Mhm.
joke frequently about being resentfully heterosexual, because if it were a choice, I'd have made it a long time ago. Uh, you know, but I
Fair.
think I think the reality is when you start looking at the hierarchical demands of patriarchy should should be good for men, right? But it's not. Any system that creates an oppressive regime for any other population, and I don't care if it's women, if it's people of color, if it's children, like whatever asymmetry exists within a hierarchical structure, it's going to damage even the people it's meant to protect.
Yes.
And you can point to time after time after time after time, we create a sense of emotional illiteracy by taking men and saying you're not allowed to feel emotion. Well, okay, you can feel anger. Rage is your emotion. That's assigned to you. You can do what you want with rage. But outside of rage, don't cry, don't be vulnerable, don't connect to your joy, don't be happy, don't frolic in the damn field. Like all of these
Don't go
things
paint your fingernails.
don't go paint your fingernails, right? Because we're constantly telling men that if you do this, you are feminine and feminine is bad. And that correlation mentally from infancy up creates an environment where men just don't like women. They don't want to be with, they don't, women as a function gets seen as weakness, and it's a detriment to the entire society. It hurts men as much as it hurts women.
Yes. And
Wow.
so
You
this,
know, my son gives me a hard time. He says I keep my soapbox on a quick draw holster. I'm always pew pew with the soapbox, but you
hey,
did. I
there's
did
nothing
sign on
wrong
for
with it.
this with a minute's notice. So
Yeah, no, you know what? I asked for you to be on because I really wanted your opinion on a lot of what's going on. And I'm glad you're talking about this hierarchical system and the idea of making people more machine like
yeah,
is
yeah,
what you wrote about earlier, is the Eliza effect issue
yes,
from um, his name,
Weizenbaum.
researcher Joseph Weizenbaum,
Yeah,
military AI, and the decision machines must never make. I talk
yes,
about the decision a machine should never make a lot, which is
yeah,
deci- machines should never have the decision of life or death.
correct.
Never. Never,
Weizenbaum
ever, ever.
Weizenbaum had three critical priorities: healthcare, warfare, and law. These were the three things that are driven by a sense of morality. And you cannot have morality without consequence. And machines have no consequence. Therefore, they cannot have morality. And that was his entire position. I put a link in there to his book. His book was published in 1976. He originally wrote Eliza in 1966. And I read the book originally. I think I read the book probably in the 90s, but I reread it about 18 months ago because I was doing a bunch. So my job is AI. I help clients figure out how to use AI in a safe manner rather than an ethical or responsible manner, because ethical and responsible AI can still kill you. I wrote a piece over on my Trustable blog about an experience that they're currently having in the UK. They rolled out through NHS, their national health system, they rolled out using AI to help manage like appointment setting and some light diagnostics. And the result of that was that about 60% of women were experiencing delayed diagnosis because extant bias in how we train doctors today has been trained into AI. And so the dismissal of women's systems, or women's symptoms rather, is built in to the current AI structures. And so when you start looking at it from a healthcare perspective, it's dangerous. When you're starting to look at it from the AI perspective, and I think the piece that I put out this morning was a lot of the feedback that I got on the last couple of pieces that I did on the military AI were, it's all highly emotional. Of course, it's fucking emotional.
Yeah.
It should be emotional. We should be concerned about this. However, I scaled back. I took a lot of the emotion out of it, and I took also a lot of sort of the nerd out of it. I tried to make sure that what I was connecting with is not nerd level, this is why you should be worried about this, but ethically, morally, like this is not nerd speak. This is, we have an environment where they are looking to a conglomeration of AIs, right? Because they first rolled out Gemini. Google Gemini, right? Backstopped by Google search. So they've taken a tool that is tuned for emotional resonance, and they backstopped it with a tool tuned for commerce, trying to stimulate that buy compulsion, right? And then that was in November. In late December, they decide, you know what we need? Grok. So then they roll out Grok. Now, having Mecha Hitler making any choices about
is bad,
is insane. That is unhinged behavior. And then Hegseth came out and started down the path of, we're going to go fast and break things. Like, as a man from the military, I don't have military experience. My family, I have tons of family in the military. My grandfather was a general, served for forever. Like, my dad was at, like, lots of people I know are in the military. So, but I don't have on the ground military experience. What I do have is a lot of human leadership experience. And I gotta tell you that when you put something that feels confident in front of an analyst that has someone of great power hovering over their shoulder looking for an answer, you're outsourcing responsibility to an untrustable product. And that is going to be dangerous. The fact that Anthropic said, you know what, we don't want to be involved in that, that is outside of our ethics, in my opinion, is frankly unexpected.
Unexpected, and
I was shocked.
Very happy to hear.
Happy to hear. Happy to hear, for sure.
It's not far enough, and I'm not going to say that they're doing enough.
We're not handing out
That
cookies.
said,
That,
we
yes.
need to give credit where credit
Yep.
is due. And
Yep.
like you pointed out in your article, which for anyone who can, scan the QR code. I put it up on the screen here on the bottom underneath our faces, so that you can scan that QR code and go to Rachel's reporting on this. I'm also going to cross post the article onto Banner and Backbone. So everyone, if you can, take a look, read it, like it, share it, get the information out, because what you're talking about in your article too is the flipping of the idea of AI becoming human to human becoming machine.
Right.
And in when we talk about like intelligence sourcing and intelligence analysts and intelligence collection, I was a human intelligence collector. I worked with intelligence analysts. I went to school and trained to partner with an intelligence analyst so that I could run an interrogation, because I was trained to go to Afghanistan and complete interrogations. I did not do that while I was in Afghanistan, because they handed over all the operations to the ANA and CIA. ANA is Afghan National Army, and then the CIA. So we were hands off at that point when I got there, which is fine. But I trained how to do it, and I know what analysts do and how they use intelligence. And when you're in a high pressure combat situation, especially in a high pressure combat situation where it's life or death, the responsibility isn't yours and yours alone. It's a shared responsibility among the people who are putting together the information that has been collected and analyzing it themselves against other collected intelligence.
Right.
The problem with, like you talk about with AI, is it's going to return a confident answer, not a neutral answer, which an intelligence professional would be benefited by a neutral answer that provided just resources, summaries, and other things that were non-added information, not adding its own analysis, not compiling its analysis into a broader summary, but only summarizing the actual text. And that's it. And that would be beneficial to analysts, because that would increase their research capabilities and it would not provide them a biased answer. And these biased answers or unbiased answers that they get lead to life or death situations, lead to, say, the US or Israel bombing a school full of children and killing nearly 140 or 150 kids, girls and women at a school. Who gives a shit if there was a base at all anywhere near there? They hit a fucking school, and AI probably assisted in that, because we have integrated AI systems into our decision-making processes at all levels across the military, and nobody seems concerned about it.
I don't have any real answers about what actually happened with the school any more than anybody else does. But my entire being tells me that AI was involved. They have an older data set. Someone might have used that building at some previous time, and they were not interrogating the information. I feel like that's a pretty safe assumption.
And as a prior intelligence person too, like, the assumption could have been, yes, that was previously used as a base and nobody updated it. And as people said in the comments, Palantir. Yes.
Like,
they are the ones who aggregate all this information together in the background into data sets, so that these AI models are pulling from who's on the bad guy list, what buildings are on the bad guy list. And sometimes those don't get updated.
Right. I mean, even when you're looking at information within, let's say you're using ChatGPT or whatever, and you're querying for something, that data set could be 30 days old. It could be 90 days old. Generally, it's not live updated unless you're explicitly asking it to search the web, right? And even then, That's only as good as the web-based data sources. And I think that the thing that AI can be fantastic with is data aggregation, right? I use AI for data aggregation all the time. Not
Yes.
a single thing that I do in AI with data aggregation goes out unchecked, right? When I look through something, I take an entire data set that I've received in, let's say I'm using ChatGPT, right? I will give ChatGPT a long list. I think you've seen my 47-page prompt stack.
In fact, I used it to create a epistemic war report
Okay.
that is around the latest in developments in the US-Israel war against Iran,
Yep.
specifically asking it to focus with international news sources included,
Yep.
and include recent information about which it gave that 30-day window of as
Yep.
recent
Yeah.
for US based technologies used by Iran since the
Right.
start of the events. Because this is Palantalk. We talk about the
Right.
tech fascists. We want tech, no fascism here. That's what we are about. We like the
Yes.
tech, not the fascism.
Right.
But our tech is being used as fascism. And one of those companies that isn't talked about a lot, and I'd love for your thoughts on this company too.
Yeah.
And the owner in charge is Robert Para of Ubiquity and the owner of the Memphis Grizzlies, who
Yeah.
runs under the radar in a lot of ways
Completely under
and
the radar.
runs the radar basically for
Right.
the Russian war machine to do its
Yep.
fiber optic drones. And I'm concerned that we're going to very quickly start seeing that technology in Iran, if it's not already there, being used against American troops.
Yeah. I mean, well, look, Russia's already providing them intelligence, right?
Yep.
And none of that is good.
And we're allowing it to happen.
And we're
We're
allowing it
probably
to happen.
providing the intelligence to
Right.
Russia so that Iran can kill our troops.
Right. And it, so much of what's going on, like everybody knows Palantir because Alex Karp is a sociopath, and every
Is
time
an
he shows up
asshole.
on TV, everybody's like, "Holy Christ, that guy's a maniac." But there are a dozen other companies, drone companies, radar companies, like very niche defense contractors that today are 100% under the radar. And there is a lot of sort of really inappropriate grifter level stuff that's happening with, like, Don Jr. is involved in a drone company out of Florida. He's like sitting on the board, and they're combining AI with drones
Hmm.
in an environment where you cannot consistently get an AI to tell you how many R's in strawberry. We should not be relying on AI. And the funny thing is I was having this argument back and forth with a friend just yesterday. And he was like, "Well, my AI will tell me how many R's are in strawberry." And so he opens up his chat GPT and it tells him the right number of R's in strawberry, but it gives him this really weird description of where the R's are that's completely wrong. Right?
Sounds about correct.
Right. Right. So we we are putting way too much trust in something that's only correct half the time. We are pushing a technology into an environment where it is incredibly high stress, high risk. And we are taking all of this information, this aggregation of data, without confidence levels and date timestamps on data sets. Like if I wanted to build what I would consider a good tool for use in a intelligence environment, every data set that came back would say I have a 50% confidence level, I have a 60% confidence level. you know this data is 27 days old. Everything should
Hmm.
have aging on the data. Everything should have a confidence level on what their recommendations are. And then they should be able to pull data and aggregate data, but not make any assumptions about the data. Because what happens is in a really, really big data environment, it's really easy to fall into sort of a pareidolia, right?
Mhm.
Pareidolia is it's what leads to conspiracy thinking. My brain is highly pattern oriented, and so I am constantly interrogating information because I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I will dissect and slice and dice and interrogate every piece of information that I am receiving, because I am also aware that I am prone to pareidolia. I am prone to seeing patterns where patterns don't exist in disparate data sets, right? AI is exactly the same way. AI is 100% pattern recognition. Everything that AI does is about pattern recognition. And so when you start looking at and seeing patterns where patterns don't exist, you hallucinate. You produce a recommendation, which they should not be doing, to act on something that may not be accurate or may not be real.
Mhm.
And so when you look at all of the different things that we're doing, it just it's just it is prone to misuse. But
Yes.
also consider this: in a world that sort of invented the term shit rolls downhill, AI is not going to be held accountable. Google Gemini is not going to be held accountable. OpenAI is not going to be held accountable. Godforsaken Grok is not going to be held accountable. It's going to be the guy at the terminal that pushed the print button and said, "This is the information that I'm seeing. This is what we should be acting on." That guy is the one that's going to be held accountable. And there's not
Mhm.
going to be a cushion for that guy,
No.
gal, that
Yeah.
human.
That individual who's gonna
That
get
individual is going to
screwed.
be, it's not going to be a general.
No.
It isn't going to be,
It's not gonna be Hegseth.
it's not, sure as shit not going to be Hegseth. Like, there are so many, like, if I were rolling out AI, I mean, you've done data implementations, you've done IT work, right? If
Mhm.
just from a project management perspective, if I were deploying a tech system to 3 million people, the training requirement alone, the guardrail requirements alone that I would be putting together to effectively manage a 3 million person rollout, a 3 million
Mhm.
user rollout, is huge. Like, it
Yeah.
would take literal years. And yet we were just like, fuck it, let's do this. Let's just big bang, big bang deployment. Fucking Christ.
Mhm. Yeah, and people are commenting in the chat around, like, um, just data sets and how numbers might be managed,
Oh
or
yeah. Yeah.
coordinates for a lat long for a grid map, and how
Yep.
precise the decimal and the rounding can be, and if some person decided to set a max length or max uh, dot notation of 2 instead of 5, you're
Right.
killing people because you're
Right.
missing by
It's death by
hundreds
rounding
of
error.
meters. Yeah,
Yeah.
death by rounding error, and no one's gonna catch that right away. That's not gonna
Nobody's
be
going to catch
something
it.
seen until a true audit happens, and data audits are hard and
Yes.
time-consuming, and data migrations where you actually have to change the values and the types in the data sets are costly
Yep.
for a company. They can be very finicky
Yeah.
and very touchy. So you have to be very careful because you could lose your data in the process. You
What
could
does your
screw
audit
it up
trail
in
look
the
like?
process. Yeah.
If
How do you back up your data to then make sure that it's established correctly again in a migration of your tables so that you have the correct lat longs? And how do you adjust previous data that was in there
Yeah.
to ensure that it is unrounded? Because it may think it's just a number and it rounds it, but a lat long
Right.
isn't a number, it's a
No.
string, it's a
Yeah.
character set. But your computer might, the machine won't always know that if the correct guardrails are not in place. I did back end work for software engineering. I was a senior DevOps engineer. I worked with senior data engineers and data um, architects and the people who created our data sets. And I created the distribution system, and that's a data set too. Is how do you manage versions? How do you have to
Yeah.
have an audit trail? You have to be people have to be able to go in and see the errors that are happening. People like just the release process for an AI system should be so strict and
Yeah.
so hard that none of these issues go out. Um, like we have to be really specific that like these issues are there's going to be human error on the programming side
Yeah.
and then human error on the implementation side. And when you deploy it to service members who aren't getting the correct training and aren't getting the correct guardrail um, for the systems and aren't being told, here's what you need to be doing and how you need to be learning and what types of things are valuable comments or prompts and what types of things are bad prompts, they're
Right.
not getting this type of training because a service member isn't a prompt engineer. They're a soldier or a marine or a sailor or a pot or an airman first or an air person
Right.
first. Like they aren't AI engineers first or prompt engineers, and we're stress testing a system in the worst
Inoptimal.
place to stress test it. Like
Yeah.
where AI should be being stress tested right now is my job. It's like I should be using, and I do use AI stuff to assist me. And then
Yeah.
I go back and ensure that what it did is right, like,
Yeah.
and correct.
Yeah.
It gives wrong quotes from transcripts that I say, quote directly from this transcript. Do
Right.
not hallucinate and make shit up. And it will still make shit up.
Right.
If you don't think it's doing that on a decision level too, then you're not thinking about what the ramifications
Yeah.
of an AI system are, especially in the hands of someone like Palantir, where they use AI technologies, or Israel, where they do have automated defense systems in place, and those can quickly become automated sentries for the border
Yep.
in the US or automated sentries for the border between states in the US. And if you try and leave your state unexpectedly, they stop you.
Yeah.
Those are systems that are going to be and are being implemented into
They're
the
being
US.
implemented today. They, I don't know if I mentioned the last time we talked, Neil Stevenson wrote this book called it's called The Fall or Dodge in Hell. And
Hmm.
the background of it is sort of a lot of the idea of epistemic warfare and sort of this idea of a bunch of billionaires being able to down upload their brain into this server farm and kind of live forever
Hmm.
until a body can be it's Neil Stevenson. It's very science fiction-y and all that. But
It sounds a lot like Test Grill and
yeah,
the and the
yeah,
fucking pseudo religion that they do have where they want to do that shit.
yeah. First of all, it I had such a hard time reading the entire last half of it because in my mind, eternal life is so untenable that it
Hmm.
was upsetting emotionally, physically, like it was repulsive. But there is a scene where these characters are going back home and they want to visit some family, but they need an armed escort to get through Ameristan, which is a big swath of the Midwest, basically east of the Mississippi. And so they needed an armed escort to get into Iowa. And and he wrote this book in like I don't know, probably 2016, 2017, sometime in that range. And um at the time that seemed wild. I'm not sure
Not
it's
so wild.
that wild anymore. like
No.
like it doesn't seem like Although Iowa might be waking up a little bit politically, it just as I was reading through this book at the time, I thought, wow, this is crazy. And in 2026, I'm like, probably.
Yeah, it's not crazy anymore.
It's not crazy anymore because you've got this like everything is surveilled.
Hmm.
Um,
Look at every street corner where you have a traffic light, and look how many cameras there are on
oh,
every fucking corner.
so my partner's mom passed away, and we got her car, and her car was registered to her, and we drove it around Oregon for, I don't know, give or take a year before we got it updated and had to go through like the probate and all of that shit. So it took us almost a year to get things sorted out, and we have a lot of automatic ticketing in Oregon. They just mail you a ticket every time you speed, every time you make a right on red and don't
Hmm.
pause long enough at the light. And so, one of the things we joke about is, man, Diane is a really shitty driver because, you know,
That rigor mortis is hard to drive with.
it's hard. It makes it's
You're pretty stiff.
hitting the brake on that right hand on red is really really hard. But but
As we
but
go
the
into some good graveyard humor.
but the thing is like we in 2026 are under constant surveillance. There is
Yeah.
not a time, and I've worked a lot in Asia, and you see a lot of people that wear masks all the time. And part of the reason that they wear masks is sort of, frankly, slightly delusional because they think that they are less surveilled, right? But the reality is you've got 26 data points right here
Hmm.
or more, depending on the type of facial recognition they're using. And so masking isn't going to necessarily help that surveillance. Back to the Neil Stevenson book, one of the things that they used was like this masking technology that would completely mask them. They used this idea of a data shield, a literal data shield that would shield you from cameras and only present to the camera the information you wanted publicly available. This book, I have referred to this book like 9,000 times over the course of the last
So
18 months.
I could easily imagine like a baseball cap or something
Yeah,
having a little
that has it.
holographic screen that comes
Yeah,
down that just shows maybe like one eyeball or like your
or
eyebrows and a smile.
or what you want to control, right? How do you control your image in a world where AI can replicate you? AI only needs 10 seconds of your voice to completely replicate you. My business partner and I, like, he's literally the ambassador for responsible AI for the country of Canada. So we work in AI a lot.
Yeah.
And um uh he sent me a a voice message, and it was a voice message that said, he had something going on and he needed some funds. And I immediately responded, okay, what do you need? Send me your information. I'll tell immediately. And then he called me and said, that wasn't me. That was AI. Now, I've known this man. I've known this man for 26 years.
Yeah.
And his AI voice message was and if you've ever talked to him, his he used to have a stutter, so he has like this cadence that is very recognizable because he spent so much time in um
Like speech
therapy,
therapy.
in speech therapy, right? So his cadence is fairly unique. And so it did not trigger, and I work in the environment, and I could not discern that voice was not his. That's where
Yes.
we're going. We are
Yeah.
going to a place where people can take your image and this video and create you to take advantage of your partners, your family, your friends, and that in and of itself is dangerous. I mean, my partner and I have implemented a safe word. If he asks me for anything, I need to ask him what the safe word is.
Mm-hmm.
That is where we are at today.
And so we can extrapolate that out into
Yeah,
the military. Let's say
absolutely.
you're placing a phone call over a secured network system that
Right.
does voice over internet. So it's not a true line, it's not a true
Yep.
landline that is much harder to mess with because that's just frequencies going through a wire and
Yep.
frequent and electric frequencies being bounced back and forth. Whereas a voice over the internet protocols or VoIP protocols
Yep.
are those can be hacked. Those can be made to say make a message from CENTCOM command go out
Right.
to all of the troops without the CENTCOM commander making that message. AI
Completely.
can replicate those things. AI can do those things. And that's not a hard extrapolation to believe
Not even a
that
stretch.
orders go to troops on an individualized basis
Right.
where it's not traceable because the military doesn't, or our current quote leadership, the idiots in charge of making the regulatory decisions around implementation, are ignoring all of the simple issues like this
Yeah.
because they want to, because move fast and break things is the
Is the
TESCREO
worst
philosophy.
ethos imaginable to have
Yes.
in high stress, high risk environments. It
Yes.
just makes no rational sense. And I take this all back, and I will take it back to close the loop on fragile masculinity,
Mm-hmm.
because so much of what comes out of Pete Hegseth is driven by his manliness, right? So much of what comes out of the men, and it is all men in AI, in the AI space, in the AI leadership space, it is
Mm-hmm. Like
probably
99%
99 point
men
men, right?
in the
But
in the
like,
5 points too, like very
yeah,
high
yeah,
rounding of
we've got a full
99s.
Six Sigma on the number of
Yeah.
men involved in this.
Yeah.
Uh, the the idea of, I mean, Elon Musk, he is genuinely one, like, he gets bullied off of gaming systems,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because his masculinity is so
He had to
high.
buy a social media network so that he could inflate
Right.
his own masculinity
It's
and
it
personality.
it is 100% about the performance and the hyper masculine performance that is required of this regime. When you
Mm-hmm.
think about the image of men and women in this regime, the women are this hyper feminized cartoon of performed femininity. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, pick any of them. Christine Nome is a perfect example. Like, they've
Kimberly Guilfoyle is
carved their
another.
faces to match a very specific hyper feminine aesthetic. On the men's side, they, like, Hegseth is a cartoon of masculinity. It is so Everything is so deeply ingrained, and everything becomes performance. And in a world where you have to do what I say because I'm the man in charge, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that is a problem.
Yeah. And go closing this loop even further because
Yeah.
somebody asked in our chat towards the beginning was, you mean they're now baking misogyny into AI? Yes, because the data system is based
It
on
is.
their understanding of what masculinity is and what
Yeah.
the systems around them should look like in their eyes. And that's where they're putting the guardrails in, is they're
Yeah.
putting data and guardrails to overflow it with patriarchal, masked, ego-driven masculinity
Yes.
as the baseline, as the rule set, as supremacy. Yeah, it's not just
As
masculinity,
supremacy.
it's
It is
supremacy. They're building
supremacy.
supremacy into the system. The system
Yeah.
has a bias towards supremacy. And
Completely.
this is one of those things where like I as much as like I don't use certain platforms because I'm not going to put my information on Twitter. Like
Yep.
I don't want to have excretions going out, and I don't want to deal with the fucking because they're called X, so they're excretions.
No, yeah. So
But I
if
don't want to
you're
deal with the
following,
bullshit there.
if you use the Chinese XI as she, that is shitter.
See?
See?
So
Makes
shitter
sense.
is excreting things out,
Right.
and we know what it excretes out. I don't
Yeah.
use Grok. I don't use those systems. I do currently still use ChatGPT.
Yep.
I may switch off of it to a different platform. There are some other good platforms out there that I can do what I'm doing and build the models and the instruction engines and setups that I want to be able to support me in research and data aggregation and
Right.
clean analysis. But I'm not going to stop using AI because it's
Right.
here.
Because it puts you
We
behind.
have to. We have
You
to. We have
you
to
have
beat
to.
their bias and over
Yes.
because that's one of the things that I've talked about. And I want your actually love your thoughts on this. As someone who's really into the AI sphere and who
Yep.
understands these data models and how the systems work, is it feasible for us to overwhelm the bias that is built into the models by putting so much data of our own from the other end that contradicts that bias to create a contradictory decision process where it has to learn off of the data that's in there because it's programmed to learn off of the data that it consumes.
Yep.
Do you think we could overwhelm that bias to correct it until we have the chance to go in and prune and clean the data? Because that's really what has to happen is the supremacy has to be removed from the data. But
Yeah.
how do we get to a point where we can at least neutralize it? Can we do that on a collective basis?
Yes, I think we can. Couple of caveats. The way that AI learns is about looking at content all over the web, right? But where it learns from is important, right? It assigns credibility and authority depending on where you publish from. If we really wanted to change that, what we should be doing is publishing all of our articles on GitHub. We should have a GitHub channel that we are publishing.
I have a GitHub.
So do I. So do
We
I.
should connect on that. That would
We
be
should connect
super
on
fucking
GitHub.
fun.
Yeah. Like we should be publishing on GitHub, right? Because GitHub
GitHub
has
Pages is perfect.
right? Perfect. And
Jira. What about systems like Jira and things like that? Would those be
so
because those are private?
Weirdly enough, it's not going to use Jira. It's not going to use systems that it doesn't have open access to, right? But Reddit, we should have a Reddit channel. We
Oh,
should
I
develop.
have some Reddit stuff that I'd love to talk to you about and
So,
get your support developing.
we should establish a Reddit channel because 22 or 25% of all learning that AI does comes from fucking Reddit, which is
that's scary as shit.
That's cool. Okay, not as bad as shitter, but certainly every
not
bit
as bad as
most
4chan
of
and
the internet.
8chan.
I mean, okay, true. But yeah, like I believe that we can put out enough information. And, I sort of think about how, it looks at LinkedIn. We should have a Banner and Backbone LinkedIn channel and publish these things via LinkedIn. We should have.
I publish on Newsbreak as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can sign up for the partnership program at Newsbreak so that we can get all of our stuff auto RSS feed onto the system. Because those platforms are where the news is aggregated from. And if we can become part of that aggregation process.
Yeah. Yeah, because AIs, so back in the days of SEO, right? You used to have decent content, good hashtags. You needed keyword density. You needed a couple of those things, right? But AI isn't looking for that. AI is looking for epistemic authority. So, are you writing in a way that creates you as an authority on a given topic or subject? And so, having levels of epistemic authority is important. And part of the way that epistemic authority can be created is not just quality of content. You should always be producing good quality content, but like, so here's one of the things I do. I write long, well researched, apparently pedantic and dense articles, right? And that's direct feedback that I've received from more than one human.
Pedantic.
I don't, I am as a human pedantic and dense, so I don't have any angst about it. But what I do is I will take this 8,000 word essay and I will drop it into Claude and I will ask it to redraft it at 1,000 words at a Kleisch a reading scale of sixth grade, right? So sixth grade is a middle school reader, and then I post it on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is just chock full of sixth grade readers.
Yes.
That's a fact.
Yes.
You can argue with me if you want. I'm not sure you'd convince me otherwise. I've seen a lot of idiots on LinkedIn, but like,
yes.
right? But so you can give it a level, and then what you've got is you've got two separate content pieces that are saying essentially the same thing from the same person, right? And that creates an epistemic authority. So when you're constantly trying to create that, that's where you, and I actually have a scoring model. I have an epistemic authority scoring model that looks at what level of authority you're trying, what domains you're trying to create authority in. And I don't know if you've seen any of my like Epistemics for Americans series.
I probably have. I try and read through stuff as it comes out from yours.
You know, people don't always understand what epistemics are or whatever. So when I write Epistemics for Americans, it's not true sort of ivory tower epistemic philosophy, right? It's American contextualized epistemics. This is what it means to be an epistemic authority, and this is why it matters to your existence in America. That is important when people start thinking about things, because when we talk about epistemic warfare, I talk about epistemic warfare, and my son says, geez, Mom, you talk about this like everybody knows what the fuck you're talking about. Nobody knows what that word means. which is why I started writing the series, because I don't want you to shy away from words that you're not familiar with. It has been, let's call it 38 years since I've been in a philosophy class, but I've spent the better part of that 38 years thinking and studying and using and applying. And so when I think about it, it just comes out. But like the reality is, not everybody thinks about thinking, and epistemics is how you think about thinking. How does meaning get established to you? How does the truth get established to you? And so that's why I started. My son was the one that initially inspired it, because he's like, Mom, give me a break, please. Not everything's a learning lesson, Mom.
I think my kids do that to me too. Is I think knowing and understanding these tools at like a sixth grade reading level for most, fifth to sixth grade for so many people is really important. And it's not dumbing it down.
It's not dumbing it down.
It's just putting it at a level where it's understandable through the entirety of the concept. Like, I don't dumb down what I write. I make it digestible. I make it easy so anyone can read
I'm
it and
working on it.
understand what I'm saying. Man, Rachel,
I
it
don't.
is so fucking hard to do. Like, I am so technical in my wording too. Like, I went from
Yeah.
a DevOps engineer. Literally, all I wrote was SOPs and documents that were
Yeah.
technical in nature and boring as shit and over explanatory. And I try and not do that as much. And
Yeah.
God, it's fucking hard to do.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
I had a gig. I had a gig where I was working with West Texas oil driller.
Mm-hmm.
And what we were trying to do is put together an AI based model for the rig techs. So you've got engineers putting together these incredibly detailed, like every nut, every bolt, every spec, everything is contained, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you've got this guy with dirty hands standing in front of a bunch of flashing red lights on a rig in West Texas, right? And so he's got to be able to pull out his app on his phone and say, red light number 12 is XYZ. Here are the numbers. AI will take it, will look at it and say, okay, here are the 3 actions you need to take immediately. Right. And then
Mm-hmm.
we took all of the engineering stuff. We built a RAG pipeline. It was a really, really cool use of how you should be able to use AI, right? Because it took this spew of engineering information, put it into a 6th grade reading level, not because that man was necessarily 6th grade, but because he was in a high stress environment. When like the average American, I think, reads at a 6th grade reading level. This is not a critique of the Americans. I mean, it's a small critique of our American education system, but like,
yeah, it's not a critique of Americans, it's a critique of America's systems.
right, right. But also, I think the reality is in a high stress environment, you don't need big words. You know, when you're looking at a bunch of blinking red lights on something that has a tendency to fucking explode,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to be very concise on the delivery of information. And so that is, I think, a great example of how you can use AI in a high stress environment in a way that protects human beings and creates a situation where you're giving out information in a very tightly constrained high stress environment, tightly constrained data set, tightly constrained delivery of information. That's how it should be done. How we're doing it today is high risk. How we're doing it today is going to kill people.
Yes. Yes, it is. It's going to kill people because we're not putting any of the safety guardrails in place, because the
Right.
people who are in charge don't believe in safety guardrails because, like we said,
because safety is girly.
Yeah.
Safety is girly.
Safety third. Safety third. We don't do
third.
safety first here, is what they say, because that's a type of masculinity.
If you
that is
need to be
being
safe,
baked
you
into
go
the
home to
system.
your mother.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's, I mean, they would literally say that shit.
No, I know.
That's
I've
the
heard
type
that
of shit
out of
they
a man's
say.
mouth.
Like that's being built into AI systems. That's being built
Yes.
into the decision-making
Yes.
process. That is,
I don't mean to mash up your
no, it's,
your niches of technology and masculinity, but like,
it's important that we do in this though,
yeah,
because we have to understand like what's the root issue here, and it's
yeah,
that masculinity is turning itself into more than just a personality decision. They're turning it
touches
into
everything.
a AI system and a governing body, and
Yeah.
they're baking it into the model of AI data collection and an AI decision making processes and algorithms,
Yep.
so that only their way of belief is valued. And
Yep.
that's really where it's going. Is that's the whole thing about masculinity, is if we can break this type of masculinity and the ego driven destructive masculinity that they use and have right now, if we can break that, we can also break it out of the models. We can
Right.
break it out of the systems, because then the people who are designing the systems inherently have a better understanding of what that system needs to be well rounded, to be
Yep.
equal and equitable as a system and not a supremacy based system. So, yeah, this whole issue is baked into masculinity. And that's why we're at war in Iran. That's why at least 7 US service members have died, and hundreds, if not thousands, in Iran have died. Like,
Yeah.
what numbers we get out of there are going to be really hard to find what the truth is. We're going to have a really hard time finding the truth in all of this, in all of that's going on, because nobody's going to report the same numbers. Everything is going to be slightly different.
Yes, and in a world where explicit work has been done to erode our entire information system, who do you trust? How do you assign meaning? Is the war. It is the war. Epistemic warfare changes everything across all domains. It doesn't have to be tanks and streets. When you have reached the kitchen table and adjusted how meaning is set at the kitchen table,
Mm-hmm.
home is the number one battle space. Once you've taken over the home, and arguably they've taken over the home in, I don't know, 50 million homes, that's huge. It's
Yeah,
huge. And
yeah,
so
and
you're controlling the messaging, you're controlling the information, the battle space has been established. We, in the sort of, I talk about epistemic warfare and like these really narrow, saturation, enclosure, capture, selective violence. As an action, that is the methodology, right? And that scales over time, right? So in the 80s, we were sort of in the saturation phase. But now, when you look at where we're at, we are very firmly in the selective violence phase. Whether you're looking at a unique action or you're looking at sort of time scales, SecSev is applicable. You can track where you are at in any level of the model, whether it's societal or an article that you're looking at on Facebook, if you're on Facebook. But
which we actually we are on Facebook. We do stream live to Facebook. If anyone's watching on Facebook, hey, how's it going? But we stream live to Facebook because, and I don't really check our Facebook for Banner and Backbone. So sorry
yeah,
if you are on Facebook with us and you're seeing this, but it's more about getting the content to y'all than me actually
right,
interacting with what you respond to the content about,
yeah,
because you need to see it. People need to see it. And if you see enough of it over time, it is going to make an impact. We are in an information war, and I've talked about this a lot, is
yeah,
flooding the zone for
yeah,
something. We keep flooding the
yeah.
zone of what we're against, and everybody's like, oh, we're against this, we're against that. Okay, we know
We
what
need to
we're
flood the
against.
zone with what we're going to build,
We have to
right?
flood the zone with what we're doing and how we're going to do it and what we're going to build and
Yep.
why we're going to build it. And every creator should be out there creating and putting as much content out and supporting each other. And part of that is subscribe to each other. Like, come subscribe here at Banner and Backbone. Come
Yep.
subscribe to Sick of This Shit Publications. Come subscribe to Rachel at This Woman Votes. If you're on Substack, you can easily do that. Just hit the Chiron at the top corner. And also double check your subscriptions, because Substack has a habit of unsubscribing people.
Yeah. If
And
they unsubscribe to receiving, so if they're in your inbox, like there are some periods where I've done an essay every single day.
mhm,
And eventually people will like unsubscribe in their inbox. That unsubscribes them from you. So that can, if you're as prolific, because I did 275 essays last year,
yeah.
which is a little unhinged, frankly. Um, but there's a lot going on last year. I had
Yeah.
opinions. I still do. I'm trying to be a little more measured this year. That was sort of my goal, is to be slightly less chaotic, slightly more measured, really stop nerding, because so much of it is like nerd overload, and I'm not trying to do that. Well, I mean,
Hmm.
I do it by
You are, but not in. You're
do
not
it
trying
by
to do it in a
nature,
bad way.
right? But I think that as I've been, this my 1 year anniversary was February 28th, and I've learned an enormous amount of not just what I'm capable of producing, but also like what people are willing to read.
Yes.
I still marvel, and mind you, I am a voracious reader, and I read a lot, but I never assume that someone else is willing to read some tome that I have put out. you know and a lot of my stuff is kind of book reporty, right? These are literally the 27 books that I read in January, and this is my opinion on, this is how they all connect together. That level of synthesis is part of how I think, and so when I write it, it makes perfect sense to me in my brain.
Hmm.
Maybe not to everybody else that's reading it.
And that, well, that it has to make sense to you though at some, and
Yeah,
that's. But I think um, one of the great things that to wrap back into what we've been talking about.
yep,
One of the great things that we've discussed today is media influence and how do we take back unexpected spheres
yeah,
of influence.
yeah.
And you hit on a great one, which is one that I've thought about a lot too, is GitHub
GitHub.
and
Yeah.
tools like that, because they pull specifically from coding resources
And
that are public.
they've got nerd cred. GitHub
Yeah.
is nerd cred.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. And that's why AI uses it, because a bunch of nerds made AI, and a bunch of
Hmm.
nerds publish on GitHub.
On GitHub. They have public and private repositories on GitHub. But
Did
like
you
that was
download
the
the Karpathy code?
no.
Okay, so Karpathy of OpenAI published essentially their originating algorithm, and you can download it and use it yourself. I was going to give you a list. What I'll do offline is give
Yeah.
you a list of, so I have a couple of machines that I use that are set up disconnected from the internet, but they are local load LLM models. I've got DeepSeek, and I've got a couple of different ones. I've got one called Gemma. I've got the Alibaba one. Like, that's why they're segregated and on machines that
Yeah.
don't have access to the internet, because I don't want any weird shit happening in my life. Um,
Yes.
but but as far as like learning tools go, and being able to better understand the algorithms that they're using, and um, using them to ingest content, right? I will take content information, I will load it onto a stick and dump it in there, and then ingest that content and start building RAG pipelines using them. And that is very effective. Very effective. I have, probably 2 terabytes of books and data and weird shit and music and whatever. And I can ingest the entirety of my weird collection and then see what kind of weird connections can be made in that. Like
Yeah.
there are connections everywhere. And when you start looking at sort of how we synthesize data and how we synthesize information, uh, we could do cool shit. We could do cool shit that helps humanity, or
Yes.
we could do cool shit that kills humanity.
We
Ugh.
could, which is what we're doing.
Which is what we're doing. We're already there. So maybe we create an environment where we can do cool shit that helps humanity. Cool shit. You know, one of the things, if one of the things that I liked about, I read an article recently, which is I can't remember the name of it, but I'll drop it over to you. Um, they were talking about how AI can be a really effective diagnostic tool, which is
Yeah.
cool. But and even if you take, let's say you get your lab work through your My Chart and you drop it into AI and you ask AI some questions about it, it's going to give you probably some pretty good information about what you don't know about your health situation. But what you should always ask it for is a level of confidence, because that's going to help you. One of the things that my partner is, he grew up in Southern California, and he had some weird moles that I wanted him to get checked out. I'm like, you should just go to a dermatologist. And he's like, I don't like doctors, and man shit, right?
Yeah.
And so I downloaded this dermatology app that it uses AI. And so you snap a couple pictures, and then it returns what that spot on your back is. But it also tells you a level of confidence. If your AI doesn't produce for you a level of confidence of the information they're telling you, that's a problem. And that's where we should be going. Everything should come with a date timestamp. Everything should have data aging. Everything should have a confidence level. Because how do you know? Back to the epistemic war report doc. That's 47 pages of guardrails and ethics and things that I thought personally were important on a data collection perspective. But even though when I run that full report in ChatGPT, I take the entire output and I will drop it into Claude and ask it to fact check it. And then I put it into a Word doc and I click every single goddamn link. And I personally read every line and I personally check every last fact before I move forward with anything. Because at that point, then I got to write an article about it. But that level of data aggregation is great. It's what it's good at. It's what we should be using, part of what we should be using it for. But it's got to have real guardrails. It's got to have real data management. It's got to have real aging. It's got to have real confidence levels. Shit, I'm out of it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things while we've been doing this too, is I've been setting up the Banner and Backbone Media GitHub organization. Right now it's a free organization, so we don't have access to all of the things that we could when we start upgrading to Teams or enterprise, things like that. I've used all of them. The free is great for what we want right now, because actually what we want is the public hosting of wiki pages and repositories. I don't really care about the code to private repositories yet. I already have a private GitHub organization for code repositories that I want to use or do use and things, and we can add to it. But part of being in this process is transparency too. Is like, if we want to be able to build tools that others can look at and use, or even go onto the NPM registry, which is the Node Package Manager registry, and download it and use it as a command line interface tool on your own system. Like, I want people to be able to have tools that they could easily access and use, because the more transparent we are in what we use, the more ability others have to use those tools to make better decisions or more informed decisions, or more clear decisions. And for places where we're hard to find and connect, we'll work on that. We're going to work on our visibility and connection. Facebook kicked my ass a bit. That one's got some weird shit going on. I've got to look into how to get that better. But like other places you can find us, you can follow us now on GitHub, and that would actually be useful. The more followers we get there, the more credibility it looks like we have, because we are credible. We're Banner and Backbone Media. We are a credible organization. We give you truth. We give you facts. We don't lie to you. And we fact check ourselves. And when we're wrong, we correct ourselves. And we can put information out into public views. And Rachel, we'll talk offline here about how we can work on managing a GitHub repository and make it super easy for us. So I'd love to talk to you about that
Yeah, I'll send you my
Because
profile so you can, and I'll follow
yeah,
you.
I'll invite
Yeah,
you as a collaborator on there, so that you can get in. We don't have anything in it yet, but we'll start getting some stuff. I'll even share, maybe as I build them out more, we can share some of our instruction sets and
yeah,
how we handle our AI models and our AI systems, so that you can easily do so yourself too, and have safe guardrails, and then put out content, or create and then put it in the right spaces where
yeah,
we could help you get onto Reddit and GitHub and other places, and have your media in unexpected areas in ways that are really powerful. So,
yeah.
one thing, definitely read. Thank you to whoever scanned the QR code. Is definitely read Rachel's post that's been, that I've got the QR on the bottom of the screen for. The boundary we were warned about. We are crossing that boundary. It's where we remove humans from the decision making process in killing, in war, and we are very close to that. And I know a lot of folks who would be considered conservative who also think that that is a boundary we
Hey,
should never cross.
like this is not a conservative versus liberal argument, right?
This
I
is a humanity
This
versus
is a
death.
human argument. This is and I know there is a fair amount of conservatism in the military, but I really believe that, you know, I think that most of the people that go into the military, they're going in with, their own agenda. You've got people going in because they want a paid education. You've got people that genuinely want to serve their country. You've got, that and mind you, I am coming at this from a long, like my grandfather, I never called grandpa. He was the general or sir. That
Hmm.
and I think you heard me call my own father the great Santini. If you've ever seen the movie, if you know, you know. But I think that regardless of where you are at politically, this is a human issue. This is a like an understanding that we are putting humans at risk by systems that have no accountability. And the only people that are going to be held accountable are the lowest man on the totem pole.
Yeah,
They're not going to hold Hegseth accountable, not until there's real trials.
those
Uh,
will come.
God,
Those
I
will
sure
come if we continue to discuss it and make it part of the
it needs to
cultural discussion.
be part of the cultural discussion. It has to be part of, I think, we've throughout the entire history of our country, we've always taken the let bygones be bygones approach
Hmm.
to the detriment of all of our futures. We did
Yes.
it, we didn't fix white supremacy when we ended slavery. Nobody was held accountable. They just put new laws in place. There was this constant idea of, you know,
Forgive and forget.
forgive and forget. And, I want real accountability. I want real accountability. I want repair. I want real repair, not just
Hmm.
accountability. And so I think that as we and further, my expectation is I will be long dead before any of this happens because we are in a phase that is probably going to take decades to recover from. But I think that we never consider repair. We rarely consider accountability. We seem to be fucking allergic to it. But I really do believe we need not just accountability, but we have to have repair.
Yeah.
Without we would not be battling white supremacy today if we had taken the time to repair post slavery, if we had taken the time to repair post Equal Rights Act and post Jim Crow. Never ended, by the way.
Yeah. Jim Crow's
Uh,
never gone away.
Never gone away. But like, you know, there has never been a time when we have taken responsibility and made an active effort to repair the damage we have done to whatever flavor of oppression we were producing. It all should be repaired. And if you cannot focus on repair, you will never truly move forward in a society that doesn't continue to repeat the same fucking thing over and over again.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No,
I'll put my soapbox away.
I think that was great. And in fact, this is also a great way to end it is part of the repair is getting that message out. And we
Yep.
are in the beginnings of figuring out how to, and I guess it would be, instead of truth and reconciliation, it would be truth and repair. And
yeah, exactly. Because, truth and reconciliation in South Africa was a great effort. It didn't have a lot of teeth.
Yeah.
I think we have to have real, meaningful repair. And so that would be my hope as we transition. I'm gonna have incredibly high hopes for 2026 midterms. I am going to do everything in my power to get every human I know. I wrote a piece a while back about sort of reaching the apathetic voters that you know. Every single one of us should be reaching out to every my vote doesn't matter person. Every single person who didn't vote in 2024, because they may have gotten 23% of the vote, but 37% of people who could vote didn't. And
Yes.
so we need to reach about 10% of that 37 and make real meaningful change.
Yeah.
And I think we can do that by reaching out to the apathetic. If every single person we know, if we reach out and physically touch every single apathetic voter that we know, we can turn people out in a meaningful way and shift this. Because if we don't shift it in 2026, we won't get an opportunity in 2028.
Yeah.
I am guaranteeing.
Yes. Yeah. We'll have a Russian election system by then.
By then we will have, and I would argue we might have one now, but
yeah, that's for a different episode. So Rachel, shamelessly promote yourself and plug yourself on where people can find and support your work.
So I am at This Woman Votes. I am on This Woman Votes on Substack. You can also find me on trustable.blog. Either way, trustable.blog is pretty dry business implementation stuff. This Woman Votes is straight up political rabble rousing. There's a fair amount of intersection between them, but pop by, see me. I'm now back from a 17-day trip, so I'm back at it with notes and everything, because everything flattens. If you don't do notes, it just flattens right out.
Yeah, Substack has a weird algorithm.
Really weird algorithm.
Really weird algorithm.
But,
so go support Rachel.
Yeah, come see me. I don't require anybody to agree with me. I love feedback. I love debate. As long as you got a good argument, I'm willing to entertain it. And, don't be a dickhead.
That's fair. Don't be a dickhead.
Don't be
I like that. It fits along with.
And I mean that in a gender neutral way. I'm using dickhead in a gender neutral way.
Well, I'll use it in a non-gender neutral way. Is men, I'm asking, we suck less. Just suck less. With Sick of This Shit publications, you can learn how to just suck less. We talk masculinity and chronic illness. And so for some of those out there, like the Megalomaniacs of Stephen Miller, you won't learn anything from us, but others you will. You'll get some great discussions and great feedback, and join our community around those masculinity and changing what the narrative is, because better humaning is important. Men, we're kind of the issue. We need to fix ourselves, and it's upon us to take the cues that others have given and laid at our feet many a time, and actually just take them. Take those cues and work with them and run with them. So just suck less. Come join me at Sick of This Shit publications, where you can do that. And then come support Banner and Backbone. Come support us here at B&B Media. We are continuing to grow. Paid subscriptions really do help, so that we can pay for some of the tooling that we are working on building and automations that we are providing to others, to be able to support their growth and their reach as well. So come support Banner and Backbone Media. There's a lot that's going on. It's going to be a busy, busy year. But one thing that we can guarantee here at Banner and Backbone is we will always consistently give you the truth. And if we fail to do that, or if we mess up and get something wrong, we will fix ourselves. We'll correct ourselves. We will correct what is failed and what is wrong. And we'll make sure that the truth is out, because that is more important than us being right 100% of the time, is getting the truth out all of the time, because you guys have to trust us. You have to believe in us. And that trust is earned and easily broken. And I don't want to break your trust. I want everyone to know. That's why we're transparent about what we do at Banner and Backbone here. Is we talk about what we're doing. We're opening a GitHub account because it can help influence the sphere of discussion. We're going to be getting on Reddit because it can help influence the sphere of AI discussion and decision making. We're going to get on LinkedIn, not because I want to, but because it can help influence the sphere of decision making and where people get their news and information from. And if we come with credible sources and well fact-checked and well-cited information, you guys have truth to back you up too at home. You can go to your friends and say, hey, this is what's actually going on. Trust it. Believe me. You trust me, you can believe me. That's where it begins, and build that. And it's not about winning MAGA. It's not about winning Democrats. It's not about winning Republicans. It's about winning us. It's about us coming together. And so if you know people who aren't voting, who are not voters, who are just apathetic to what's going on because they've been beaten down, remind them that they're not unimportant. Remind them they are important, and get them some information. Feed them these reports. Feed them these discussions. Get them in on the easier topics too, because some of this can be really heavy and really hard, and they go, oh shit, that's a lot. Get them in on different things so that it's easier, so it's consumable, but invite people in who are apathetic. And that will change the discussion for us, for everybody. And that's where we're going to win, is as we build community. So help us build this parallel system, help us build the new media sphere. And to the folks, all the folks who are here with us on all of our platforms, thank you. Thanks for being here with us on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, and on our primary platform of Substack. We appreciate all of you. And this has been today's and this week's Palantalk. I am Nick Perro, co-founder here at Banner and Backbone, joined by my friend Rachel from This Woman Votes. And I will be back next week with Shane for another episode of Palantalk, because Palantalk is where we like tech and no fascism. Have a great day, y'all. Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate you.
Uh-oh.